Hello, everybody, and welcome to what are we called? Heart of Scrolls. It's a podcast, and today we have quite a good show. I think it will be. So yeah, with me today, returning guest Cantor. Hello, Cantor. How are you doing today?
Hello, hello. Hi.
And hello, Powell, who's first time on the show. So welcome and enjoy your stay, please.
Hello, thank you.
Alright. Today we will talk mostly about Decay and, all the things Decay because I wanted to do a little bit themed topic. But before we get into it, there is just a topic we cannot miss out on this week. And especially with these two guests. I mean, it was a craze. Last week on podcast, Kantar mentioned that he's working on that some kind of mystic deck. I didn't know what he was talking about, and he was honing it. And like 2 days later, it exploded since he took it in ranked, and we saw countless messages on Reddit, like about 100 comments on Reddit, which is really big for Scrolls. And then it got nerfed, like almost immediately after. So we cannot miss out on the discussion. So, actually, I don't know what to start the discussion with. I don't know. Kantor, take it.
So, should we? I guess I'll start with describing what the deck is. I think most people, probably anyone who's watching, probably knows, but people who watch later in the archives might not. It's a deck that showed up. It's a combo deck that allows you to activate the Mystic multiple times in a single turn and draw a lot of enchantments, which you then use to make that Mystic as powerful and unkillable as you can and win the game with it. And it proved to be really effective, so much so that it needed to get nerfed. And the key scroll that got nerfed was Vengeance Veil. And it was nerfed from when you take damage, your countdown is reduced by 2, to when you take damage, your countdown is reduced by 1. And that means that now, when we're trying to make that deck, you need to include copies of Fleetness, and the goal is now to get Fleetness and Vengeance Veil together to get the combo to work, or 2 copies of Vengeance Veil. So that's the deck. That's the nerf that was made to it. And yeah, I think now we'll talk about like what the state of the deck is now, right? So you've been playing it with Fleetness involved also, Holofoil? At least a little bit.
I haven't actually tried. I haven't tried that one. Like I was saying earlier, the only I didn't realize that there was a nerf. So when I logged on the next day, I just jumped into ranked, and the guy I was playing asked, "How are you going to beat me after the nerf?" I was like, "Oh crap!" And luckily, I discovered that Vengeance Veil stacks, so she still counted down by 2. And luckily, it was against late game order, so I still managed to win. But I'm not going to try that again. But yeah, I think, I mean, Fleetness is more reliable than just relying on 2 Vengeance Veils. But yeah, that has escalated quickly. Yeah, so we haven't actually seen. Yeah, I don't think I'll be doing that in ranked anymore. But that was a really quick fix, I gotta say, considering.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And it was like surprising because when we talked about it in the guild, not many of us expected a change to come anytime soon. And
No, I mean, I think the assumption was that it would be, weeks potentially.
yeah, like maybe not too many weeks, but yeah,
Well,
I expected a lot more than 2 or 3 days or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And let's discuss the change. I think that's an interesting topic and how it was handled. The Vengeance Veil, it did not kill the combo, but made it way more difficult. And
Yeah,
I
I
was
mean, there were a
afraid.
couple of.
Sorry, go.
Sorry, there were a couple of candidates, weren't there, for the actual nerf? Because there's like several ways really that you could do it. Um,
Yeah, I was afraid that if they were going to nerf it like really soon, they are going to make some hasty decision and somehow kill it off completely, and I would hate to see that personally.
yeah,
But it turned out okay.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people. I think a few people thought that Earthborn Mystic's already very strong. So it was a good kind of excuse to nerf her and stop her drawing using her ability more than once per turn. And then a few people thought, well, I thought because I'm kind of like I have a lot of problems with wild anyway, so I thought that replenish should just be removed from everything. And then what was the other ones? Redesign is one of the biggest helps, isn't it?
There were a
think
lot
overall-
of changes
yeah.
people were throwing around as ideas. Like the change that I thought that they would make is the one that they did make. So
Yeah,
that's
same.
reaffirming. But ones that people suggested that would completely kill the combo, which I like to have these things stay in the game and like be a little bit. They should be difficult enough to do that they don't like just completely kill off other decks. But change that people were suggesting was like if an ability costs you health, that doesn't actually count as damage. It counts as like paying health, which would be a different thing. That introduces a whole bunch of other mechanics. But
Yeah.
so that was thing. People were saying that things shouldn't activate more than once in a turn. People were saying that you should make it so that Mystic doesn't take damage when she uses her ability at all, but she should cost one more. Like all these different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. At first, I thought that the change with making Vengeance Veil only count down by one would be too harsh for the deck to still really be playable. But now that I've tried it with after the nerf, I think I'm alright with it.
My question is, because like Hollow I think said earlier, Mystic is already really high above the power curve of usual scrolls, so she deserves a nerf on her own. My question is, would that make it bad enough if they just touched her and not the Vengeance Veil, like putting her down to 3 health or upping her cost to 4? Would that be enough, you think? Because I think like that would be killing
I
2
meant,
bugs
like-
with 1 nerf, and that's awesome.
I meant restricting it to once per turn, so that it just wouldn't work full stop.
I know what you mean.
Like, not that I think that should happen. I mean, I just remember one other thing, but this has caused like a lot of problems, is the whole damage type thing. And if effects like abilities like that actually just lowered health by 1, so it's just not damage, then I wouldn't even, you wouldn't even cause those problems. Same with the whole wildling magic stuff, that mess. But that's another story. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
another thing. Gunter,
When
what
I
were you
was-
going to say?
Yeah, just to question about that. When you were saying, or when I was saying that I thought that making Vengeance Veil only count down by 1 might be a bit too much to nerf it. Some of the subtler nerfs that I was thinking would be to increase the mana cost of things, so that it takes you a little bit longer to get all the resources you need to get your combo going. And that would be like either removing Replenish from Vengeance Veil or increasing the cost of Mystic to 4, for example. And a lot of people's reaction to that was like, okay, so if Mystic were to cost 4, now like put them side by side, put her side by side with Night Scholar, and your first instinct is like, wow, she's awful. Like you have to pay 1 to draw for her, and she has 1 less attack. But when you actually think about it, she doesn't actually have 1 less attack because she has this ability that gives attack to anyone who's enchanted.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah,
might
exactly.
actually
I
have
think
1
that's-
more
that's
attack.
one-
than
yeah,
her.
that's
She
one of
might
the
actually be a
strongest
4/4. Yeah, like her stats might actually be a 4/4. So if she's a 4/4 for 3 with a draw ability, then and not only is it draw, it's targeted draw. You know what you're drawing, so you can plan your turn around it. So like
Yes.
I don't know, she might actually be a 4-cost scroll in terms of value already. So
Yeah, I think she actually is. Like the targeted draw is so good, especially if you if you go back to how deck designing works and how you want to draw your best cards as much as possible. If you just 3 enchantments that are absolutely crucial to your deck, and you can redraw them over and over again. Like imagine ranged energy, being able to redraw bombard and over again. I know it's not the same thing, but the targeted draw really is a lot more powerful.
It's the difference between being able to base the deck around it and not. You know, enchant growth you could have based around her, really, couldn't you?
Also with the existence of Stagheart, because Stagheart is a card that just becomes so much more powerful when you have additional copies of them in your deck, and that's effectively what she allows you to do, right? So there are cards that exist that can take really good advantage of that sort of targeted draw.
So I guess my thought process is, why didn't they maybe still do the Vengeance Veil change, but the Mystic really is a card to nerf when it comes to, you know, growth and general balance of the game. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't take it, you know, both at the same time. But it's just a nitpicking, I guess.
Well, I think that they didn't want to like overreact in terms of like they don't want to change the entire landscape of all growth decks.
Yeah, exactly. You make a massive
change now
for changing
as a reaction to this one specific combo deck.
Well, a Veil, like, we're never going to see it again now. Well, you know, compared to like Mystic. So it was probably, I guess maybe their preference is just to target stuff that is less.
Yeah, that's
common.
another issue. I mean, Vengeance Veil had one use in this deck, and it wasn't used other than that they buffed it, and now they had to revert it because of one OP combo, and now it's, you know, almost unusable again, and it kind
But I mean,
sucks.
if they changed it and then took away Replenish, then they could, you know, that would slow it down a lot.
Yeah, I mean, taking away Replenish would be pretty good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because it was already buffed, so, I mean, Replenish was added to all the crappy scrolls to kind of make up for how crappy they were. And I don't know, it seemed like that would counteract it a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of sad seeing Scroll that was dead made, you know, useful, and now it's dead again and possibly unplayable in most of decks. So it kind of saddens me. But let's not stick around the Mystic too much longer, unless you guys want to mention something else too, or something.
There are a couple things. Like we had a mirror game, and like the mechanics of the mirror we wanted to discuss a little bit.
It started with, well, someone, obviously everyone was talking about how kind of mindless the deck was and how. But then me and Kaza had we had a mirror match, and it actually became extremely complicated towards the end because there were actually a lot of things to think about, a lot of things that I couldn't undo by the end of it because I'd already messed up the situation. Stuff like I'd already filled a row up, and as soon as both of you, so you get to a point, if you've both got the ball rolling, you come to a point where you're both trying to protect 3 idols. You've both got infinite access to Potion of Resistance. And so until that point, like there was a while when we could both actually reach one of the idols by kabonking whatever had the potion on it 3 times, and then like roasted bean potioning our way to the idol and then killing it. But it also required having creatures down already to like lower the potioned thing. So yeah, it actually became, and Counter won in the end because I'd already like stuffed myself. But it actually became really quite fun because there was so much to think about.
So what did it come down to? If you have infinite Potion of Resistance, infinite redesigns, and 3 Mystics on board, what did it come down to?
Well, I think in the ideal situation, I mean, Kanto was heading in that way. I think because Kanto actually obviously thought about it a bit more than I did, as usual. He got to the point, because Kanto, you had 2 Mystics down doing the same thing, didn't you? And as soon as...
I did start to get a second Mystic. I got a second Mystic starting to do the combo, but...
Yeah. The only way you can get past one of them is if you kabonk, or however, reduce whatever's got the potion on, down so much of the potion, like that dies, and then you get the idol with Machination Mindset. But as soon as you've got 3 Mystics in the way of those 3 idols, and with like 50 health and the potion, then it does actually become a stalemate. So we were kind of racing to kind of win before that happened.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that because I had already filled my row up. So I'd already like ruined my chance to do that because anything I put on that row, well, everything on that row already had about max 4 health. I think it was a useless contraption. So there was, if you think about it, there was a useless contraption with 1 potion, which means that you only need to hit it 4 times. So then Kanto managed to bonk it 3 times, then hit it with a nog, and then get the idol. So, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Like, it came to a point where I found it interesting in that I decided that I was going to play under the assumption that you were using the deck that I posted, like, scroll for scroll, and that you'd made no changes to it.
Yeah.
And I had that deck memorized. So, because I worked on it so much. So I saw there were like 2 things that you did that I was starting to be able to play around. Is the first thing, you played all 3 of your blood boils on one.
Yeah, so
on
that
your first mystic.
Yeah.
And it's also important to remember that redesign is an enchantment. Once you've cast it, it doesn't go back in your deck. So
they
only
would
2
die
copies.
eventually.
Yeah, there's only 2 copies. So you can only make 2 of your mystics like really big, and there's only actually 1 machination mindset. Like, I know other people run more, but in the deck that I posted, there's only 1 machination mindset. So you can only actually get 1 relentless creature. And I think by then I brought it down to 2 kabonks. So it started to get even harder. So to finish the game. So you had so earlier on in the match, there were times where I could block idols and I could make decisions knowing that because you no longer had any access to Blood Boil, I knew that you couldn't replenish that you couldn't use replenish to turn your growth into wild. So I could like plan around how many resources you would have of the other types.
Yeah.
And then like at the end it was like save up 2 kabonks and like 2 roasted bean potions so that I could, it was an eternal statue and it was like kabonk it twice and then get 2 units to attack it once, and then the third unit was like the relentless one. So
that's it.
There's
there's
a lot of stuff.
You outbrained me there.
It sounds so complicated.
It was like my brain was just like.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to Kantor's thought process of running around memorizing the deck list.
When
Holy
we describe
shit,
it,
Kantor. No wonder you're number 3.
It's like...
Alright. Yeah, enough of Mystic. I had enough. Now you are making me feel bad for not being as smart. So let's move on to Decay, because I have, it's theorizing there. You don't have enough to prove what we are going to talk about. Decay is being heavily underplayed lately, and we were thinking, why is that? And we thought we might discuss why is that and what should change, and all of that on the show. So we will start by the topic of why Decay is underplayed and what triggered it and so on and so forth. And since I don't want to talk for too long, I'll let somebody else talk a lot about what changes tipped Decay off the edge, and I'll add to that. So who wants to start with the obvious things?
Well, a lot of stat changes, I suppose, is noticeable. Quite a few people been quite outspoken about stats. Just, I don't know, just like kind of across the board, just a lot of them kind of down 1s and 2s and stuff. And I should probably let someone else start because I probably know the least about Decay.
Kantor, you made a list, or you went through them, I think?
I have a short list of 3 cards that I think were nerfed too much, and 3 cards that I think are currently being played a lot and are like powerful, like new additions to the deck. And the new ones that I think people are playing a lot are Halls of Umlasa, Anima Conduit, and Festering Freak. So these are things that weren't in the old deck, but are seeing some play now. And I guess is where I think are like pretty good cornerstones of where Decay is at the moment. Again, like I haven't actually played a proper like mono Decay deck in like several months, I think. So I'm not too well brushed up on it. The ones that I think were nerfed too much are Bloodline Taint, Blightbearer, and Ilmire Hunter. So I was quite happy with Blightbearer at 3 mana. I was quite happy with Ilmire Hunter at 5 HP. Ilmire Hunter in particular, I think was just like some people were playing it, some people weren't. It didn't seem overpowered.
Yeah.
Blightbearer, almost everyone was playing it, and it was really good, but it didn't feel overpowered to me.
Yeah, I never
personally.
thought that. I was kind of surprised, but then I kind of put that down to the fact that because Blightbearer was changed when Poison was changed, and everyone kind of thought that Poison would actually be really strong, didn't it?
Yeah, I think only developers actually thought that. I think that's one of the issues. Like when the big balance change came, it was loads of nerfs to HP and Witch Doctor attacks and loads of changes at the same time, which is a good thing, like I said last time. But this was like all nerfing. Plus, on top of that, completely reworking Poison and nerfing all the Poison scrolls even though they were unplayed. Like, what is her name? The one with one attack that does the spread Poison thing?
Pestis Simulator.
Yeah, Pestis Simulator. She was nerfed for no good reason. And all of that came, and I think at that point it wasn't only the power level going down, but also the popularity of Decay going down. And Decay doesn't really have a dedicated following like Order does. If you nerfed Order to hell, there would still be the Overlord playing Order, and there would still be Antirad playing around with it, and Grasstash, and whatever. But Decay didn't really have that. So on top of loads of changes and like all nerfs came no popularity, and Decay just wasn't played for a while. Then somebody came up, or no, it came up, but then Poison variation was refined, but people didn't really enjoy playing against that, so it was nerfed. And Blink is hating on the change so much, and from that, Decay really never recovered. And one thing, when we were like a little bit discussing the show before we actually started, it's not only all these nerfs to Decay, it's also that growth got buffed. Because before Waypoints, growth was really weak against Decay, or at least in my experience, and it was the general perception. Decay really good against growth because Road Eaters, because Witch Doctors, because Harvesters spinning back, not being able to reach them and everything. And since then, actually Fangbearer, Counter mentioned Fangbearer, I think he came with Rebellion, didn't he? But anyhow, 2 Relentless units, and especially Earthmirth in growth just made growth all the more powerful against Decay. And that's the end of my monologue. Criticize it.
Yeah. Well, there were units that were cards that were nerfed that I feel deserved it, and I pulled 3 out. Are Damning Curse, Illimer Witch Doctor, and Necrogeddon. There's some people saying in the chat that they thought Blightbearer was the...
Did you say Necrogeddon?
Necrogeddon, yeah.
What was the change to
It cost 7.
Wasn't that a long time ago, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
But...
sorry.
Pretty long ago. Damning Curse I don't think needed it, but I don't think that it was too much. I think, like, Witch Doctor needed it. Witch Doctor, in my opinion, was the best card, the best creature in the game, like, before the nerf.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was always saying that, like, I thought it was pretty ridiculous that it was 5/2/5. I mean, Blinky's still
Yeah.
adamant that it should be, and then I mean, I always said 3-2-5 would be fine, but yeah, I think that was called for.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things like the Blade Bearer and Ilmar Hunter nerf. I would be happy enough seeing reverted, but I think there's also mostly a meta thing at the moment because, so
Sorry. Okay.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say about Taint. Like, yeah, you're probably going to say it, but like, it's kind of like what becomes viable because of the changes, isn't it? Like, Bloodline Taint always meant that automatons were just not viable in a sense, and then now they are very much so.
Yeah, it held back order a lot too.
Yeah, exactly. More to the point, order, because yeah, anything like that, you couldn't just have one subtype where you get wrecked as soon as you appeared, like as soon as Decay appeared. Because I remember thinking when Tank was changed that automatons would be back at some point. Someone would come along and like, you know, and someone has.
And they have, yeah.
Donkey has come and made a great deck.
Yeah. What I think about like the place of Decay in the meta right now is that like the classical like Witch Doctor Necrogeddon based deck was always a pretty slow deck, right? And there, as we've moved through the year or last year, as we moved through 2014, like little bits and pieces of it got nerfed here and there, and more aggressive options were brought up, and it's kind of hard to actually get to a point where to keep enough stuff on the board and to get to enough mana that like playing a Witch Doctor is really worth it, that it like really gets its full value. Like let alone getting to the point of being able to finish with a Necrogeddon or a Watchergeddon would be even more mana. So like in terms of just aggro coming up, it makes the classical Decay a lot weaker. And then I noticed something when I was playing I was playing Knights once. So I was playing like a mid-range Knight build that I put together, and I was going like full on all Knights all the time, like no soldiers. So I didn't run any skirmishers. I had like no relentless units. And the deck I was losing to the most was actually Undead Decay, because they just have like all these 1 HP or like 2 HP junk creatures that have a ton of attack, and then they have Restless Bones and kill all my stuff, and I'm like buffing up all my Knights to like 5-7 attack, and like I will attack you for 7 and kill your Myers Shambler. Sad. Right? So that was the feeling that like, oh, to beat this I need Relentless, right? Like it's just what I need. And that's true of the old of a lot of the old Decay as well, right? So what we were saying about Fangbear is that's why they were good against Growth. It's the only thing that Growth had for a long time that had Relentless, that could like kill something in front of, like could kill the Husk in front of a Witch Doctor and still kill the Witch Doctor, was Great Wolf. But now they've got Fangbear and they've got like Earth and Mirth to buff up its attack. Like you can actually punch through and kill a Witch Doctor more effectively now. So there's better answers to its strengths. That Relentless, the power of Relentless also helps against the more aggressive like undead versions that we haven't talked about too much, but like I was saying about the Knights deck. So since like Growth and Order seem to be like the most popular right now, and they both have like a pretty strong selection of Relentless units and ways to buff up the attack of them, I think that's part of the meta not supporting Decay right now.
The thing about the meta is that going to ever change? Let's transition into that, because you are correct, and I don't think that, you know, those facts that there's enough Relentless now in the game, and it's kind of easy to get loads of damage on the Relentless units. I don't think that's going to go away. So Decay's strengths aren't really all that strong right now. So yeah, I said it's going to stay, but that was more really like a question: is it going to stay, or will there come a point where there's less of that, and maybe Decay can go on without any buffs? Yeah, let's ask this question.
We
Does
don't need no
Decay
buffs.
need buffs?
Yes. What?
I suppose the thought of like the meta's not going to go away is valid. Like, there's also the like LGO being popular means Imperial Resource like blanks all poison now.
Yeah.
So that's another meta thing.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Against Decay.
Have they said when the next patch is coming, like in terms of balance tweaks?
I really hoped it would come before holidays, and I know people suggested loads of changes in emails to them, and good changes, and changes that would address the meta to make it a little bit more interesting, or at least for Decay especially, give it a fighting chance, but it didn't. So let's first answer the question if it can go on without debuffs, and then let's maybe talk about the buffs. But Hopeful said you said the buff is needed. Gunter, I guess you agree.
I haven't answered that yet.
All right.
I think that there's versions of Decay that are doing okay, that are doing pretty well. Like the more aggressive, the non-human versions, ones that are running like Boghound, Anima Conduit, like still running their harvesters and stuff. Like sometimes even up to Halls of Umlasa. It kind of runs the gambit between whether they're going like full on like I'm gonna Restless Bones my Shamblers into your face all the time, or a little bit slower. And I think those decks are okay. I don't know if they're good enough to really keep up, but I don't know. If you get a really good Restless Bones off, it's like the most powerful thing in the game. Like 3 mana God Hand is real good. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think the like even just reverting Blightbearer and Ilmire Hunter might almost be enough to bring it back, because those both deal with the problem of Relentless in a way. Like Ilmire Hunter just has a lot of health. Like being able to get 5 health for 4 mana on a body that is relevant, it's pretty good. And Blightbearer, again, like they're just strong defensive units that might be able to get you to the Witch Doctor phase of the game, and they're both human.
I find them quite like, I think it's kind of quite subtle, but with the curve, like often, well, in most factions you'll find that like at 3 cost you're getting quite a good threat on the board usually. Those are when the kind of Skirmisher, Stormrunner, and Wooden Growth, like. But yeah, Blightbearer was kind of like a big threat at 3 because you have to deal with it, and it's kind of double-edged sword, isn't it? Well, not double-edged, but it's going to be bad whatever you do to it unless you actually remove it. But then, like, so the change to 4 is quite big in that sense. And other than that, you've got like Rot Eater and Harvester. Obviously, Harvester's necessary, but like it's not a kind of immediate threat, is it? And then you've got stuff like Festering Freak, which I've seen a lot more play now, but it doesn't seem, I don't know, it doesn't seem as good for a 3 cost as like other 3 costs you get. So I find it maybe it's to do with the curve a bit, kind of where you wouldn't outright know why is this kind of not working, why is this deck suddenly not good, but it's kind of like, well, I'm just not, like you say, I'm just not getting there quick enough. I'm not getting to the Witch Doctor.
I think Festering Freak's really good, and sort of like is filling that role that was missing, right? Like when they nerfed Blightbearer, right? And it provides that defensive unit, but it's not a human, so like they're pushing away from playing the Witch Doctor strategy.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like there should be other strategies in Decay, but it doesn't support the like classic model there. So like the Witch Doctor was kind of like Decay's biggest strength, and if you have to find a different strategy, like that's great and all, but the tools need to be there.
to get to it. Yeah.
Well, to make the other strategy work, either the tools need to be there to get to your witch
I mean,
doctor
yeah, to
end
make
game,
them
or you need to be
work. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Either way, either you need to have the tools to get to the witch doctor, or you need to have like the tools to make another strategy powerful.
Yeah.
So, Festering Freak, I think, is actually one of the better 3-drops that you can get. So I don't know if I. Well,
Okay.
although Decay has a ton of great 3-drops because like Rod Eater is way above curve, and
Yeah,
Tarsier
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't mean
so-
it's like
That's
weak.
But
Just-
compared to like Boom Reaver or something, Festering Freak all day.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I'll take
don't even
it.
start
I'll take it
with-
over Breaker too.
Range energy is just completely different to everything because of Bombard.
All right.
So-
So, what kind of
Maybe even over
changes?
or Skirmisher, but
What kind of changes would you guys make to push Decay to be as played as the other factions? And what kind of direction would you take it? Would you just, remove the nerfs? How do you say it properly?
Buff.
Revert the changes, or would you, buff other things, or maybe nerf something in other factions?
I was always kind of hoping that they would kind of order more subtypes to kind of deal with Bloodline Taint, because there's a massive difference between Curse 1 and 2, which has obviously been a big blow to Decay.
So you would take
I
it
remember
more
us talking about that.
more back to the poison for Decay. If you're talking about Bloodline Taint, then
Oh no, I just mean like Order was one of the biggest. Well, Bloodline was a massive problem for Order, wasn't it? And that was kind of one of the big reasons for its nerf, wasn't it?
yeah, but it's not really what I'm trying to talk about. I'm trying to suggest changes to Decay to make it back up, and
Okay. Well, in that case, I would still suggest more subtypes in another faction. But if that's
Right.
not, the answer, I don't know.
Gonna-
there's a lot of ways you could go about it. I'm not really sure I can give a great answer because I don't really have a plan for this question. But like reverting in terms of just pure balance, like I think they could revert some of the changes that I've been mentioning. As for Bloodline Taint, I'm less certain because Bloodline Taint was like pretty nasty. I don't think it was like unplayably like I don't think it was breaking the game, but it was really nasty, so it getting a bit of a nerf is understandable, but I think the nerf that they went with is like a little bit too rough. Maybe it should just like, I don't know, cost 5 or something, like Curse 2 cost 5, I don't know. But
just going
I'm
to
not sure if
enjoy
that
myself.
change needs to be made or not. But yeah.
Somebody suggested when the Bloodline Taint change was made that Cursed Hex, I think it's called, could take the place of the Bloodline Taint and get 2 curse and increase cost, because it would essentially be the same as Bloodline Taint before, but it would be easier to play around it, and you would know that you can play around it, whereas something as Bloodline Taint you really can't when you are Order or...
Yeah, and then if you are a faction which is weaker to it, then you can also play around it then. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
But I'm personally like really missing the creature decay. Like I really enjoyed playing it, and it's just too slow now.
What if it only lasted like 1 turn? What if it was just like Bloodline Taint is like Curse 2 this turn or something? I don't know.
But then that's kind of more in favor of like heavy removal decks, isn't it? Sounds like it would just
Well,
kind of cause
yes and no.
chaos.
Sometimes they
So
want
it's
to
just
do
like-
their heavy removal over like sometimes they want to curse and then like Frostgale next turn or well, not, but it doesn't work with Frostgale anyway anymore, right? It only works
Yeah,
with
it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah.
I still think I
thinking,
would like Iron Bile more than 1 turn Bloodline Taint.
But again, it's
I
the
don't know.
curve as well, isn't it? because there's a massive difference between 4 and 2 because there are so many 2s that you'd want, and at 4 you want a pretty devastating blow to the.
When I think curve, I mostly think about creatures personally. Like I don't feel like spells, especially cheap ones, really need to respect the curve in that way. Like when I think like a 1 or 2 cost spell, I think of it as like I don't think of that as my 2-drop. I think of that as like on turn 5 I'll play a 3 and this to support my army, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
They don't really slot in the same way. A higher cost spell like a rallying or something, that's my 5-drop. Like that's my whole turn plan, right? But like a focus or something they function a lot differently. But yeah, in terms of like what does Decay need? Change Blightbearer and Elmire Hunter back, and it'll probably have a decent shot. I don't know if it'll be good enough, but probably pretty good. But in terms of like adding new stuff, it just needs the right like it needs like the right tools to weather the storm, I guess. I don't know. Maybe people just aren't experimenting with like sickening fumes enough, but I don't know.
Well, it's soft counter. I'm actually thinking that Decay could use some kind of AOE, because it really doesn't have one except for Bloodline Taint and Witch, Blood Witch, whatever she's called. Names are
yeah. That's what I was thinking too in terms of like how much Bloodline Taint hurts. Like the nerf to Bloodline Taint really hurts. Is like you can't do Baleful Witch combos anymore. Like,
yeah,
they just kind of suck.
I don't even think they should really be the core for Decay. I think Decay just in general could use something AoE, something to remove creature spam, because right now it really has a problem with creature spam, doesn't it? It has all those effective but slow removals like Brain Lies, which is like if you drop it turn 3, that's your turn gone, and it takes time before the opponent is gone, and all that aggro from your opponent can easily overwhelm you. So I think Decay might use something, have a like more removally for the early game, or a human with more than 2 attack above and below 3 cost, something to give the board a fighting chance. Actually, I don't think that would help, because no countdown reduction means they would just die anyway. I don't know. I think the only really good thing that Decay could get, and that would save it for sure, is removal. And I'm not sure if I like that.
Well, Decay's like traditionally always had strong removal, right? Like Decay Energy were like the big removal factions, and they have quite a bit of it, but it's about tempo really. Mm-hmm. So, like, because they keep nerfing like AOE, you need to keep up on the board in order to really be able to be competitive. So, like, Growth's doing that just by being the best at doing that, and then Order's doing that by Gallant Defender. Like, if you fall behind, like, you're able to build up a bit. But so either, I think like Soul Steel is a good example of like a real staple Decay card, right? So like it gives you tempo, it like kills something immediately and puts something on the board. Whereas like you were saying, like Brain Life just takes a long time before it actually does anything. And you can't really afford that kind of slowdown. So maybe if there were more cards in the feel of Soul Steel, or if there was like Anima Conduit's also doing pretty well with like
nothing bad.
Almost like a reverse. I had this idea, I don't know if it's any good or not, but like a blocker that's sort of a reverse Rod Eater, where like when it dies, it like buffs everyone around it or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like that's sort of in Decay's flavor, and like lets you make a blocker that actually fits the flavor. It doesn't need like armor to be effective, because I don't want armor in Decay. That would be kind of lame. But
that's actually a good idea. I really like that.
I mean, Decay's always punished you for trying to remove its stuff, and it's kind of constantly trying to make use of death, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or put the
I see that. I see it more. I've always seen Decay as a bit of a fortress, really. It's kind of building that up, and it's just picking off all the threats one by one, and just rather than just sort of like actually removing it.
Yeah, it doesn't do that anymore, does it? It just has beefy stuff, but nothing that really punishes you for killing it. It's just Bladebearer, which is not really played, Festering Freak, which you can get rid of with just one creature, and it's 1/1. And then there's Oblivion Seeker, but it's 5 cost and doesn't really shield you.
We've got Anima Conduit, which is obviously the next
Yeah.
big thing.
Yeah, that's a big help.
Oh, I did have an idea for a sweeper that I really wanted a while back. So another thought they could do is like put Pillar of Disease on a creature that can actually attack and can move around. Put the Pillar of Disease effect on it. That might be cool.
Oh,
As
we were
like an
saying,
alternative
was that
to
when
armor.
we were talking about Umlasa High Guard? Because I was saying that if it could do something to the whole row where they all lose attack, that would be kind of a lot stronger.
Yeah, Umlasa High
or
Guard
kind
sorta
of
has
useful
these
because, yeah.
I don't know if you guys watched the Bergen Brawl, where I played a lot. One
Yeah.
thing that battled and won me a game against Decay was State Machine. When we were talking about Anima Conduit, this thing came to my mind, that State Machine just hard counters Anima Conduit, and it's
Yeah.
really bad for Decay. So maybe
Yeah.
that should be worked around in some way, because it's just too strong, honestly, in that matchup. And another thing, maybe I think I would like, it would help, but maybe would again push Decay a bit over the curve, would be a Return to Nature back to 2 cost. Would it be too strong? Would Decay suddenly become OP again?
Return to Nature back to 2 cost?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I think it would be cool to use the Return to Nature effect and have it like be more of Decay's thing, because that's sort of like the black mana in Magic the Gathering's like thing, right? Is that it like does stat reduction as its way of like doing damage and removal. And I think that you could just have like a Decay Quake. People will tell me I'm crazy because like mass removal always gets hated out, but like just some fairly high cost, like maybe 5 or 6, and it's just like -2/-2 to the entire board for this turn, and like maybe could even cost 4 maybe. But like the reason that it would fit in Decay's flavor as it is stat reduction, it would allow for them to have a sweeper option, and it would be weaker than Quake in the following ways. Like, it would reduce your creature's attack as well as doing damage to them, so that you couldn't like combo it together as easily to actually kill things off. And if you don't kill something with it, everything bounces back at the end of the turn. So like you can use it to sweep away aggro, but it doesn't you can't wear people down and like double Quake people for, like turn after turn with that sort of effect. So I think that could be good for Decay.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy that mechanic, and it's too bad that it's tied to that growth, because it just opens too many options for Decay at that point when you give them growth. But I really like that mechanic just because of Soul Steal, and yeah, it's
and I mean, like,
soft removal. Like soft means not outright removal, but it can be pretty heavy removal against spammy decks. So temporary removal that can kill you by removing is, I think, maybe could be more in Decay. Yeah. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, like I would just the spell I'd like to see would be like somewhere from like 4 to 6 Decay, like -2/-2 to be to both your side and their side. Like the old Return to Nature was just their side, I believe. And it was only -1, so but you could cast 2 of them. But what you were talking about with Umlasa Highguard Holofoil about like it affecting the whole row, maybe, or something. You were saying something like that.
Yeah, I think what we at the time we were saying that I mean, typically, if you're in a lot of situations, the unit at the back, the creature at the back, is going to be the one that's got the most attack or is the most most of a threat because you're defending that. So if you're actually, you know, if you're just reducing the attack of the unit at the front and it has move 0, most of the time that's not actually going to help. So
Yeah.
it seems just more appropriate, really, to have something that, you know, frightens the whole row and not just. I mean, I get
would still have to
I
stand
know,
in the
I
front,
get, I
right?
get the flair.
Or-
Yeah, exactly. We still have to be at the front. But yeah, it would be cool if it was kind of pillar of fatigue kind of effect, because then it would be. I mean, I don't know the numbers exactly. I guess you'd have to maybe.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I
in terms
suggested
of-
like, because if it was -3 attack and move 0 on everything, obviously that would be too. But if it was -2 or 1 on everything, and then maybe move 0 to the one on the front or something. Yeah, I just think it's a shame that it's not viable at the moment.
Right, I've got a hypothetical, hard to pronounce. I'm more thinking more and more about what aggro growth and, you know, just generally aggressive growth decks do to the game. What would happen if they were like really heavily nerfed? The aggressive growth
Joy
decks?
across the world.
I mean, it would help Decay a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Growth
again,
still can do
like
well.
the amount of
I think
single.
they're in decent shape. Like I don't know. I used to really dislike aggressive decks because I want to be able to do cool stuff and I want to be able to play my cards and I don't want to just be dead before I get that point. But they don't seem like too bad right now. Like because I see a lot of them end up losing to. Like people are able to slow them down fairly well now with like Gallant Defenders and things like that. But
Yeah, that's harder though. But
yeah. Well, we were just brainstorming ways that can be like that. Decay can be able to deal with that as well. Like I don't think like just nerfing those decks is really the right choice.
yeah.
But we can discuss it though. Yeah.
I think that the combination of there being things like Earth and Mirth and so many one countdown creatures is definitely a problem for Decay, and its fortressness has kind of gone away for reasons we've just talked about. So that would probably definitely help. Then I wouldn't know where to start on those aggro decks. Earth and Mirth. I mean, not Earth and Mirth. Mystic. I mean, how well? Yeah, because isn't it Guido who made that? Wait, who made the one countdown deck? Growth.
Lots of people.
Lots of
I
people.
don't know. It's around for too long.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm saying.
I don't think there's a one creator of that. It's just, hey, we've got loads of fun countdown stuff,
Yeah.
so let's play it.
Yeah.
I was testing that on test server like when Rebellion was being tested, I think. So like, yeah, it's pretty popular idea.
I haven't actually tried to get anywhere with Decay because I barely ever play it, so I feel like I don't know what's making me struggle, and I don't know what the problems are. I mean, that would make it a lot easier to.
I won a game with it in the Bragging Brawl, but I don't think my opponent was really all that great. So that had a lot to do with it. But what did I play against? Was it Growth? I think it was Growth, and I think I only won thanks to luck. Or was it something else? I don't remember. But yeah, it's able to do well and stuff, but it's just not as played. And I think it has too many weak matchups. Yeah, we also the topic, didn't we? We said everything interesting there is to be said, I think, about the game. Did we miss anything?
There's probably more interesting things, but
I don't want to say stuff myself
Let's say a lot.
because I'll probably be wrong half the time because it's my worst faction probably.
You can be wrong. It's not a crime.
there's some like, thoughts about Umlasa when you're like High Guard. You're mentioning him. But
Yeah, I think he's a pretty. He looks awesome. It's a really nice idea.
I have to remember he's expensive is the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, you want stuff which is like, obviously, you want stuff which is really, useful. I mean, like, Witch Doctor is a hugely defensive scroll in the sense that you can't even get to it if you haven't got solutions. So the Umnasa High Guard needs to match that in a sense. Um, I mean, I'm sure the devs agree about that. Maybe there'll be a change.
Talking about the idea of putting um, putting Pillar Disease effect on a creature, the idea of making Umlasa affect a whole row is basically the same idea, which is cool. But I think that effect, like trying to use it as like an armor unit, doesn't really work as a 6-cost thing because you don't really want a 6-cost defensive unit because you'll be dead before you get there.
Yeah.
But looking at Umlasa, like it's a 6-attack creature. Like I want to be able to protect this. So like when I first,
exactly. That's the other thing because you said, wasn't it you said that they should be switched?
a lot of people have said that this should be switched to like a 4/6, but I'm not actually. I don't actually think it needs to be to do that. My thought is that it. When I first read it too, this is how I thought it was, but I thought it was just no enemy units between you and the High Guard. Like I thought you could put your own stuff in front of it, but you can't. Like I would like that change. I would like it to be just like the first enemy unit on its row gets the effect. Like, and you can put it at the back and have it attack for 6, and you're fine.
Oh yeah, because it says no units in between. Right. So if it's at the back, then it has no effect. Essentially.
Yeah, if you protect your 6-attack creature, it doesn't have an ability.
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be changed for a start.
Yeah,
I think I would really like its cost to be lower. 6 is a really high investment, and if it was readjusted with the stats to be at 4 costs, I think that's a good spot. That would help a lot. Having that human ready for that Witch Doctor soon, and maybe having less attack, but that ability down at turn 3-4 to address things like Wetland Rancher and so on. It would fit the curve a lot more, and generally would be more usable. Because
it just depends. It just depends on like what purpose they want this scroll to serve, right? Like.
Yeah.
If it's supposed to be a defensive like frontline unit to use its ability, then like defensive units you want to be fairly disposable, so you want them probably cheaper. Like if it's supposed to be a and it should probably have some more defensive stats than 6 attack. But if you want it to be like your late game finisher, like it looks like they're trying to make it like a big 6-attack thing or like a big 6-cost thing with 6 attack that's like supposed to be really scary. Like I'm cool with that, like it being expensive and you only like you having to use it later. But it needs to be as good as if it's going to be a finisher. Your 6-cost Decay scroll needs to be as good as a Cleaver or an Arbalister. Those are right. Like those are the big 6-cost finishers that are in the game. So like. I like the idea of at least being able to like use its ability from the back of the row, so you can defend your finisher.
I think I would actually like it more if it affected the whole opponent's row, because you don't. What do they have in front? It's like shields and defenders and useless rats and whatever, and all the high attack things are usually in the back. So it's like the ability is completely useless, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, change that in some way. Counter, another interesting thing. You seem to have loads of in your buffer. Do you have anything else?
That was the last thing that I was thinking to say at the moment, but we can. I think we're running out of time, right?
Yeah.
So we should say our goodbyes, eh?
I was just checking if you don't have something quick, and since you don't, and since the time is almost over, and I've been drinking loads of tea that's going through my body a lot faster than I thought, let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you to the viewers for watching Heart of Scrolls. I wanted to tease next week, but I have no idea what's going to happen next week. Let's hope there will be some changes. Actually, there should be a roadmap before next week's show. So I think that would be a good topic. Possibly, you know, I could get a community manager. So, yeah, if you want to tune in next week, that should be on, I hope. So yeah, again, thank you guys for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And see you all next time, I guess. Goodbye.
Bye, buddy.